Welcome back. We're going to take a little break from the house build and revisit the second portion of my flight down to Florida from almost a year ago now. For those who didn't see part one, I'll link that somewhere here on screen. But as a quick catch up, we've just reached our cruise altitude departing Athens, Georgia, and we're definitely going to be dealing with some weather. If you were in southern Florida in November of 2023, you might remember this system that never quite fully developed into a tropical storm, but did dump nearly a foot of rain over 2 days on the Miami area at least. Well, we're headed towards that. However, I'm not a complete dummy, and instead of flying directly into all of that, we did end up taking this flight into 3 segments. So we're making a stop in Flagler for one more fill up before heading to Stewart. Now, this affords me 2 critical things, at least in my mind. First, it gives me more time to assess how the weather system is developing and get another briefing closer to my time of arrival. Equally important is that I'll now be flying that last leg with extra fuel reserves just in case I need to 180 my butt right out of there and start heading north again to wait out the weather. One added benefit that I had was being able to brief my passenger about what was going through my mind and incorporate his curiosity and awareness as an added tool for observation. Task saturation is something that is a real risk, and an extra voice asking why, how, what is something that I find quite helpful. Now, at the time this video was recorded, my personal minimums had ceilings that only went down to 1,000 feet AGL. And although this seems high now, I was relatively freshly minted as an instrument pilot, having only done a handful of approaches in actual conditions that I could have logged. Everything else had been with a view-limiting device and in a training scenario. Well, the training wheels are off this time. As you can see from the video, we were in and out of the clouds a lot on this second leg. This was a good way for me to reacclimate to the effects of limited visibility and switching to relying on the gauges. It also served as a great warm-up to help my passenger get comfortable with the sight picture and the disorientation that can come with the clouds. For the non-pilots who may be watching this, spatial disorientation is a real risk. Human nature is to rely on your senses to tell you what is up, down, left, and right. But when you lose the visual cue of a horizon and your inner ear is gently rolling with the wind, you can very quickly think you're flying straight and level and actually be in a very unsafe and unusual attitude. Spoiler alert though, both this flight and the final leg, where the weather gets much worse, all ended up being almost textbook in procedure. Whether it's because Randy was curious, asking about every system and process associated with the flight, or because I had a great instrument instructor in training to rely on, I felt very comfortable with a controlled expansion of my personal minimums. One thing that did not go as planned, though, was the power on the GoPro on the final leg. The power cord fell out of the forward-facing camera, and during our fuel stop in Flagler, the camera died, and so all we have on the final leg are our faces as the clouds roll in, the sun goes down, and darkness and rain take over. Now, I guess one side effect of the briefing and the systems overview is that Randy got pretty comfortable, and before long he was tired of my talking and nodded off for a brief nap. I kept to my normal flow, briefed my approach a few more times, and settled into some ATC easy listening until Randy startled himself awake. Sure, I was given a climb to get back on an even altitude, but I don't think it was my flying. But I'll throw up the telemetry here, and we'll let you be the judge of that.
That'll be on video.
Anyway, the rest of this leg was pretty uneventful. Even got below the clouds for a nice visual approach into Flagler. Except, while we were landing, we were given a nearly impossible turn to take without risking my brakes.
Columbia 1 Bravo Golf, left on Delta, ground point 75.
Unable Delta.
And it's a good reminder that the phrase unable is always an option if you need it. What struck me as odd here is that this instruction was given while it was pretty obvious I wouldn't be able to make the turn, and it's the first time I've ever been told to turn at a particular taxiway, and it didn't include the phrase if able. But Having that cast ring nose wheel made a 180 just a few hundred feet later, a pretty easy adjustment to make, but the whole thing did have me scratching my head a little bit. Now, I'm going to transition to the limited footage I have from the final approach into Stewart, and I'll use this time to make the obligatory plea for you to interact with those like and subscribe buttons down below. I'd like to continue dropping the occasional video, but I want your feedback in the comments as to which content you want to see. Do you want me to share more of these flights? Should I be sticking to the home building? Or perhaps spreading out even further into the other hobbies I've been collecting? Sound off below, but until the next one, thanks for checking in.